Today we're going to have two presentations on nutrition. The first one is going to be by Danielle Baham. She's a dietitian at UC Davis Comprehensive Cancer Center, and she's going to be up first.
Okay, so yes, it's advancing. Tech is working. So just a little icebreaker about fatigue. A couple of jokes I googled to break the ice for us this afternoon after lunch. The first one is, if you run in front of a car, you'll get tired, but if you run behind the car, you'll get exhausted. Oh, goodness. And also, scientists have finally discovered exactly how much sleep a human needs. How much do you think? More. Just 5 more minutes. So that's just a little humor about fatigue, right? But fatigue is one of the most common side effects of the cancer treatments. So there's something called healthy fatigue, which is, we feel a little tired, we get some rest, and fatigue resolves, right? But with cancer-related fatigue, it's chronic, and it lasts over a long period of time, and it interferes with your functioning, and also it's not completely relieved by sleep. So it's like no matter what you do, the fatigue is always present for either after cancer treatments or cancer surgeries. The NCI has a classification criteria for fatigue. So mild fatigue, grade 1, over baseline, just a little tired. Grade 2 and 3, I would say this is where I often see patients where it's causing some difficulty in their usual daily activities, where they're like folding laundry and they get exhausted, or I'm trying to wash the dishes or go to the mailbox, and just after a few feet I'm just so fatigued I can't do anything about it. And how do you feel when you are fatigued? So fatigue is like pain, it's self-reported. It's not really something that you can measure. So these are some terms or criteria that are characteristics that patients often say when the doctor or provider asks, how do you feel? I'm tired, I'm weak, I'm exhausted, I feel lazy. The number one thing I hear as a dietitian is I have no energy. Tell me what I could eat so I could get more energy, right? And when you're fatigued, it impacts your usual habits, your daily activities. It can affect your mood, affects how you take care of your family. It can affect cognition. Some people call it brain fog. Also, you don't feel like yourself when you're so tired. That can affect your mood as well, because you think something is wrong with you because you're so tired. Fatigue usually happens can last up to the first year after treatment, but there are some reports that say that fatigue can happen up to 5 years after your treatment, whether it's the oral cancers or chemotherapies that you're on, and even after surgery. So some of the known causes. So I'd like to put that little picture of the squirrel. What do you think the squirrel is doing there? Nibbling, nibs. So I call these the tyrosine kinase inhibitors, or the TKIs. I call them nibs because they all end in the 3 letters NIB. So your treatment, almost all of these here, in the list of side effects that you get during your patient education, in your patient education handouts, fatigue is one of the top 5 side effects. Also, if you've had surgery, so partial or total gastrectomy, fatigue is caused by vitamin and mineral deficiencies. So that is caused by malabsorption. Once you have part of your stomach removed, it's not functioning the way that it usually does. So you're losing, you're decreasing gastric acid, Also, you're getting some decrease in the intrinsic factor, which is needed to help with absorption of B12 and iron. Also, if you're still in pain, I heard someone mention earlier during one of the talks about, no wonder I was in so much pain after surgery, because it's a major surgery. You'll be in pain from your nerves trying to get back together, your healing, and also the pain medications can also cause fatigue. Also, if you've had a gastrectomy, you may experience dumping syndrome. Has anybody heard of dumping syndrome before? And so what that is if you eat nutrients or foods that are too greasy or too high in sugar, all those foods dump right into your small intestine, causing all this fluid to neutralize it, right, to balance everything out, and it's causing your body to go nuts. And one of the symptoms of dumping syndrome is feeling really weak. Dumping syndrome can last anywhere between 20 or 30 minutes, but I've had patients tell me before that the dumping syndrome just lasts for hours and they're just totally worn out from that experience. And here are some proposed causes of cancer-related fatigue. So fatigue being the primary component, but you will have psychological distress, from having a new diagnosis, life demands. It could be work, taking care of your kids, or you're a caregiver for someone else. Your sleep can be disturbed, and disruption in your circadian rhythm. So sleep disturbances can be just anxiety from what's happening with you, a disruption in your circadian rhythms. You might, you're up in the middle of the night for no apparent reason, you can't sleep. But something of interest is nervous and immune system changes. So what has been researched for, they say, about 20 years, but immune system changes in relation to cytokine activity. So cytokines, what happens is the treatments is saying that the tumors and the treatments can activate what's called a pro-inflammatory cytokine network, which increases the symptoms of cytokine signaling in our brain. So the treatment is telling our brains, to slow down and shut down because of this pro-inflammatory process that's happening. So it's like all this is going on, and what do we do, right? We have to take treatment. We may or may not have to get surgery. So it's like, what exactly can I do? What exactly can I do about being so fatigued? So oftentimes you may hear, you're not getting enough calories, or try small frequent meals, but what exactly does that mean? So I just wanted to give you an idea of how to calculate your daily calorie, protein, and fluid needs. So how we calculate, we use a basic one, the calories per kilogram, but there are more, in-depth calculations that you can use that use your height, weight, and your age, and an activity factor. But for time's sake, we'll just use this. And does anybody know how to calculate pounds into kilograms? Correct. Divided by 2.2 to get your kilograms. And so if you're at a point where you just need to maintain your body weight, we use 25 to 30 per kilogram. But if you would like to gain weight, if you have had surgery and you've lost more than the expected, like 10 pounds after surgery, and you want to try and gain weight, rebuild that muscle, then you want to aim for a higher calorie per kilogram, the 35 to 40. You may even want to go up on your protein needs also in terms of grams of protein per kilogram. We generally use 1 to 1.2, but we can go up 1.5 to 2 depending on how much you lost, the percent of muscle and weight that you've lost, as well as if there's malabsorption still going on. You want to make sure that you're getting in enough so that way you can help your body heal and recover and replete. Daily fluids. So that's something that we don't really focus on. Patients are always telling me, I got to get protein. I got to get protein. And it's like, okay, well, what about your hydration too? Because hydration, if you're not hydrated, you can feel tired, you can feel dizzy, get low blood pressure too if you're not hydrated enough. And for some, it's difficult to get in fluids, especially if you've had gastrectomy, because you have limited capacity. And we want you to do small, frequent meals. We want you to get in the calories, and then we want you to get in the fluids. So it's really a balancing act where you really do have to eat and drink all throughout the day. So I have here listed some good water sources. Of course, water. There are foods that have high water content: watermelon, cucumber. You can do popsicles or Jello. But it's good to always carry a water bottle with you all the time. I watched there was a reel on Instagram, and this comedian was making a joke about how we carry around water bottles all the time. And he's like, why? What is with everyone carrying around water bottles all the time? Like we're walking across the Sahara Desert. And it's true. I mean, my water bottle really is like a comfort thing. As soon as if I'm in my car and I realize I don't have it, then my mouth automatically gets dry for whatever reason. But, for cancer patients, if you're recovering from surgery, going through treatment, you definitely have to stay hydrated. Monitoring your urine color is a good way. You want to make sure it's lemonade color, not dark in color, strong odor. Got to make sure you start drinking some more. And even your nutrition shakes and your smoothies will give you some hydration. The nutrition shakes usually are about 70 to 80% water. So I have an example here just to give you an idea of what a daily calorie and protein goal looks like. So for a 150-pound person, I just used a maintenance calorie per kilogram. So about 1,700 calories a day, 70 grams of protein. I just used the 1 gram per kilo, and 1.7 to 7 cups of water a day. So with fluid, you can, if you calculate your calories, you can also just say, I'm going to get the same amount of calories, the same amount of fluid that I am calories. So if you see that matches 25 by 68, you'll get 1,700 calories or 1.7 liters of fluid. So it can be calculated as 1 milliliter per kcal. And let's see. So just in general, you want to make sure you're taking your vitamin and mineral supplements as recommended. You should be getting your routine B12 checked, iron levels checked. If you're having, still having malabsorption, if you've had the surgery, or even if you're having diarrhea related to the treatments, get your electrolytes checked, your kidney function labs, to make sure you're on the right path with your hydration. So the small frequent meals, you want to make sure you're eating something every couple of hours. It's best to make sure you have a protein source with your meals and your snacks. And if fatigue is a really big deal for you, try the meal delivery services. You can try the ones that are already prepared. I had a patient, she liked the Factor prepared meals, and for her, it was mostly related to her fatigue and taste changes. She was like, these meals just work out perfectly for me. Also in the grocery store, a lot of them have nice single serve meals where it'll have your protein, your vegetable, and your carbohydrate, so you don't feel like you're wasting it by preparing a big meal. Also, let your friends and family help you. Oftentimes that's the only way they can give, right? Is they want to start a meal train for you, or they want to bring something by. And, just allow them to do it. You can tell them specifically, just, make me a small portion. Don't make a big pot of soup or don't make a giant casserole. Just make just enough. And also, if you are seeing a dietitian, you can ask for a handout on foods that are helpful for post-gastrectomy or while you're on treatment, and have different foods lists and give it to your family so they'll know what to bring you. Let's see. Also, try the nutrition tracking apps. So, if you really want to see how close you're getting to your goal, if you calculate your calories and protein, MyFitPal is, I was going to say cheap. It's free, but there is, an upgraded, what do you call it, paid version. Chronometer, that one is a really good one if you want to monitor more vitamins and minerals. Actually, I learned about this from a dietitian at UCSF. She was a patient. He was on a feeding tube and he wanted to do his own blenderized tube feeding. And so Chronometer listed out a lot more vitamins and minerals than your standard MyFitPal or Eat This Much. And of course, we can't talk about nutrition without talking about exercise. So exercise is one of the primary methods to help combat fatigue. And it doesn't mean that you have to do anything strenuous. The main thing is to get moving. The national goal is for us to walk or do some sort of aerobic activity at least 150 minutes a week. Get up to 175 minutes a week if you can, and also including strength training at least 2 to 3 days out of the week. So eating well, getting in the number of calories and protein, keep moving, stay hydrated, and again, your vitamin and mineral supplementation. And that's pretty much it for my portion of talking about nutrition and fatigue. And I'll be here afterwards for any further questions. And now I will pass it on to Greta.
Okay, so up next we have Greta Macaire. She's a dietitian from UCSF, and it's all yours.
Okay, thank you. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, great. So I'm going to be talking about nutrition and the microbiome and cancer. And over the next 10 minutes, I want to describe the microbiome, tell you about what it is, a little bit about its relationship to our health and its role in cancer, and just give you some practical dietary strategies to help support your gut health and resources so that you can learn more about this really interesting topic. So first off, what is the microbiome? So the human microbiome contains 100 trillion bacterial cells, individually known as the microbiota. These cells exist in our mouth, our intestinal tract, reproductive tract, and skin. And so a collection of microbiota is called the microbiome or a microbiome. And so the largest microbial population to exist in the human microbiome resides in our small and large intestine. And this is referred to as the gut microbiome. So just a raise of hands, how many of you have been hearing about the gut microbiome over the last several years? Okay, research is exploding in this area. And dysbiosis is basically a microbial imbalance, either in the number or type of bacteria. So what does our microbiome do for us? Well, I can tell you it does a ton of things, and we don't actually even know the full depth of how our microbiome works in our body and what it does for us. But this graphic provides a general overview of some of what it does for us. So you'll see it helps prevent the growth of harmful bacteria. It helps regulate hormones and neurotransmitters, which impact our mood and our mental health. It helps to regulate and improve our immune function. It's responsible for the fermentation of compounds called prebiotics, which are fibers that are basically food for the gut bacteria. And those prebiotics produce something called short-chain fatty acids, which are compounds that have an anti-inflammatory effect in our body. The microbiome in our gut also produces vitamin K, vitamin K2 to be specific, and B vitamins. And it helps preserve our intestinal or mucosal barrier. So it does a lot of different things for our health. Let's see if I missed anything there. Research is just so far-reaching in terms of the effects on our microbiome and health. So outside of specifically in the gut, also looking at things about supporting a healthy weight, heart health, oral health, reducing diabetes. So very far-reaching role that our gut microbiome has. Go to the next slide here. All right, so what about microbiome and cancer? So the previous slide showed some of the preventative effects that the microbiome can have on cancer risk. But we also know that disruption of our microbiome can have cancer-promoting effects. So currently there are 10 microbes that the classified as carcinogens by the International Agency for Research on Cancer. So some of you may have heard of human papillomavirus being linked with cervical cancer and some of the head and neck cancers, or H. pylori being linked with gastric cancer. So those are just some of the microbes that actually are linked with promoting cancer. There's also obviously many other factors that influence our susceptibility. So most individuals that are exposed to these bacteria will not develop cancer. On the flip side, the other thing to consider is how our microbiome interacts with cancer treatment. And so it can be affected by cancer treatment. So for example, one of the mechanisms with some of the GI side effects, such as diarrhea with those TKIs, or as Danielle likes to call them, the NIBs, one of the mechanisms that's being looked at is the loss of microbial diversity and how that can be linked with some of the GI side effects from those medications. There's other mechanisms involved as well, but that's one area. And so we really want to think about how can we support gut health. It's one step in terms of improving our tolerance to treatments and also just supporting our immune function during cancer therapy and in our overall general health. So what kind of factors affect our gut microbiome status? So it's affected by our genetics, our child delivery method, breastfeeding, the environment, our lifestyle, and medications. And of course, diet. So diet is assumed to be one of the most prominent factors influencing the microbiota composition. And in as little as 3 days of changing diet, we can see changes to the gut microbiome. But really to have like a lasting effect on the microbiome, we're looking at lifelong sustainable dietary changes, or diets that people are on. And when I say diet, I don't mean like a temporary diet. I mean the type of foods that somebody's eating. But it's more of the lifelong diet that's really going to have a profound effect on the gut microbiome. And so right now, as of now, there's really no consensus as to what constitutes a normal or a healthy microbiome. We really don't have the answer. It's just enormously complex. There's a ton of research going on in that area, and there's individual variability. Again, genetics and where people live and lifestyle. There's just a lot of variability that makes it really difficult to define what is a healthy microbiome. But there are some known parameters that we know so far are linked with better health outcomes. Those are richness in the number of species of microbiome in the gut, the diversity of species, and the stability of the species. So basically the stability would be the microbiome's ability to resist change under stressful situations, or if it does change, kind of get back to a state of equilibrium. And so those are the types of things that we can try to work on and focus on to optimize this gut microbiome for our health. So what types of impacts do different diets have on the intestinal microbiota or the gut microbiome? Research has linked the Western type of dietary pattern, which is high in processed and refined foods, with reduced microbial diversity. So we know that more diversity is good. And research shows that a Mediterranean type diet, which is high in minimally processed plant-based foods, is linked with an increased diversity and more richness of the microbiome. It's also linked with lower risk of heart disease, inflammation, diabetes, obesity, and in many studies, different types of cancer. So in part, that might be the effects of how the gut microbiome is also influencing those processes as well. So just to look a little bit closer at what a Mediterranean diet or a Mediterranean style diet would be, because there's lots of other types of diets that kind of follow this pattern. But you can see from this graphic, it's basically an abundance of plant-based foods. So fruits, vegetables, beans, legumes, nuts, seeds, whole grains, herbs, spices. That's what really makes up the bulk of this type of diet. It's not necessarily devoid of, animal protein. It's not like there's no red meat or sweets, but they make up a very much smaller portion of the diet. They're kind of the 20%. If you're thinking about 80% of the time what you're eating, that would be the 20% or less. And so this is kind of the model that seems to be providing us with most of our gut health benefits. And so Mediterranean style diet is going to have a lot of plant foods, and you're going to get fiber and polyphenols. And polyphenols are all the colorful compounds that you see when you're looking at your blueberries and your dark leafy greens and your garlic and your onions, all those different colors, flavors, odors. Those are the polyphenols, and they all support more of this diverse, rich microbiome and all of the different health benefits that we're getting from that. The other thing is prebiotics. So we hear a lot about prebiotics and probiotics. Mediterranean diet or a plant-based, plant-heavy diet is going to be rich in prebiotics. And prebiotics are specific types of fiber. Not all fibers are prebiotics, but most prebiotics are fibers that feed those beneficial gut microbes. And that's what they eat. That's what they ferment and produce short-chain fatty acids from. And research has linked consumption of trying to get at least 5 grams of prebiotic fiber daily in the diet with improved gut health. So this is a list of some of the best food sources of prebiotics. Our lunch today was packed with prebiotics, which I was really pumped about. Because there was asparagus on there. There were some, I think I saw berries. There were some garbanzo beans. It was like a really prebiotic loaded meal. And so I think we probably all got our 5 grams of prebiotics with lunch today, which is pretty exciting. But you can see here, it's all plant-based foods. Somebody wanted to know if we were going to tell them to eat chocolate. So dark chocolate actually and cocoa actually are a source of prebiotics. So go ahead and eat some dark chocolate. You don't have to feel guilty. And so the next thing that I like to just kind of focus on is sometimes with different treatments that people are going on, the nibs or after surgery, it can feel really hard to digest fiber and prebiotics. We can be dealing with a lot of gas, bloating, diarrhea. And so these are just some tips that I recommend for how to incorporate these into the diet when you're dealing with some GI tummy troubles. One is, if you're starting to increase the fiber and prebiotics in your diet, do it gradually. We want our microbiome to adapt to that fiber, so you want to ease into it. Start with small portions, so maybe not a huge kale salad, maybe a little side version of that to start. Preparation methods can make fiber and prebiotics easier for our gut to handle. So you can cook, you can chop, you can blend, and that often improves the tolerance. So maybe hummus or like a blended lentil soup as opposed to, a bean salad would be a way that the tolerance would improve. It's really important to drink adequate fluids. Danielle mentioned that for fatigue, but also for digestion and moving these fibers and prebiotics through the digestive system. Fluids help with that. And even considering other ways to strengthen the gut barrier. So bone broth, which is just basically a very slow, long cooked broth made from chicken or other types of bones, has a very easy absorbable amino acids, which are parts of protein, and collagen, which can help stimulate and strengthen the gut barrier. So that's something you can add in as well. And then the way we eat can actually help our digestive process. So mindful eating, which is basically just sort of slowing down, eating slowly, chewing our food well, taking a pause when we eat, that actually helps our digestive system. So when we eat fast and we don't chew our food well, there's usually a lot more tummy troubles. And there's even a type of breathing called diaphragmatic breathing. Has anybody practiced diaphragmatic breathing? Okay, I'll give you a resource for that. And it can really help calm the digestive tract before you eat. It's also known as belly breathing. Probiotics I wanted to touch on because when we hear about the gut microbiome, a lot of people hear about probiotics. And what probiotics are they're live microorganisms that when administered in adequate amounts confer a health benefit on the host. We are the host, basically. When we take probiotics, they are microbes, but they generally don't colonize our gut like our own bacteria do, but they do have benefits for our gut health. So I've listed some of the benefits that have been shown with probiotics, decreasing diarrhea, improving some digestive symptoms. And we can get probiotics from fermented foods and from dietary supplements. And if you look at what a probiotic would be called, if it's on, say, a dietary supplement or a fermented food, it's always identified by their genus, species, and strain designation. So you'll see Lactobacillus, Acidophilus, ABC, for example, or 1, 2, 3, or whatever the strain designation is. And that is a very specific type of probiotic that, if you're trying to get a specific goal function, you want that specific strain. Otherwise, another probiotic you might be taking might not do what you're looking for. So what are some of the fermented foods that we can consume to get probiotics? They are foods that are fermented and then retain live microbes. So that would be yogurt and kefir that list live active cultures. It'd be fermented things like miso, natto, tempeh, fermented vegetables, most kombucha drinks, most cheeses, and even some beers are going to be a source of probiotics. Not that I'm advocating drinking. How about supplements? Just to finish off, probiotics, can be a therapeutic strategy for managing GI side effects and some of the inflammatory GI side effects of treatment. There was a review of 20 randomized control trials that found probiotics reduce treatment-related side effects in 85% of the studies they reviewed. They found specific strains to be the most beneficial, and using them for at least 4 weeks. But really, with all of those studies combined, the variability of the different strains that were used, the length of treatment, the study participants, and the type of treatment make it virtually impossible to generalize the findings to, make a recommendation specifically. So it's sort of a case-by-case recommendation. And we do want to be very careful with people that have severely impaired immune function. Be cautious because there have been case reports linking probiotic supplement use to sepsis.